thank you so much for being on Justice this evening. I know you've had a busy night, having
Absolutely.
already spoken at the Values Voters Conference. But my viewers are thrilled to have you on tonight. Let me start by asking you about reports that Rudy Giuliani is now under investigation and involving the Ukraine. And there is some confusion as to whether or not you still consider him your attorney. Is he your attorney?
Yes, and he's a great gentleman. He was a great mayor, one of the greatest, maybe the greatest mayor in the history of New York. He was a fantastic prosecutor. I know nothing about him being under investigation. As somebody said, I heard a report today. I can't imagine it. He's a man that looks for corruption, and whatever he does, I really believe he's I know he's an honorable man. You know him very well, too, Jeanine.
Of course I do, and I worked with him when he was a prosecutor. And so you unquestionably stand behind him in spite of this investigation.
Well, I just don't know if there is an investigation. I've just heard it.
The New York Times is reporting.
I find a lot of things that you hear, they should look at other people. They should be looking at really bad people doing really bad things to our country. So, no, I stand behind Rudy Giuliani, absolutely. He was a crime fighter from day one.
What's interesting about this is that the Inspector General referred Andrew McCabe for prosecution exactly 1 year and 6 months ago to the Department of Justice. Now the New York Times is saying that Rudy Giuliani is under investigation for lobbying efforts as it relates to the Ukraine. You know, within minutes after we hear the Ukraine, it's kind of interesting if indeed that is going on at the Department of Justice, especially in light of what's going on with the Bidens. But what do you know, Mr. President, about those two men who have been just arrested, who allegedly were working with Rudy Giuliani? They say that they had dinner with you at the White House.
Well, I don't know who they are. I mean, I guess maybe I met them or maybe I took pictures with them because I saw there was a picture of me with them and others. But I take pictures with a lot of people. I don't know them. I don't know who they are, Jeanine, but you'll have to figure that one out for yourself, I guess.
Okay. All right. So you have no recollection.
I know they're donors because they made donations, political donations to a lot of different people, a lot of different politicians, I guess, over the years. So they're donors, but I have many donors, thousands and thousands of donors.
All right. I want to turn now to impeachment, Mr. President. You know, this Marie Yovanovitch testified behind closed doors yesterday. She defied State Department orders and attended the deposition. Do you expect that she's going to keep her job in the State Department, or will you fire her?
Well, I don't know exactly the status. I don't know what she said because the Democrats keep that very much under the vest. It's very interesting how they don't tell us anything. We literally have no rights on the other side. We have no rights. We have no anything. And it's a very unfair situation, I think. But I don't know very much about her. I know that supposedly she was very partisan and she was a Clinton-type person. But whether or not she keeps the job, I'd leave that up to Mike Pompeo.
Okay, and certainly you have a choice in terms of who your ambassador is to a particular country. Of course you do.
It's absolutely my choice. And again, she may be a very fine person. I just don't know. But even if you listen to the very good conversation that I had, a very, very good, no-pressure, congenial conversation with the new president of Ukraine, he had some things that were not flattering to say about her. And that came out of the blue. So, you know, it'd be nice to have somebody that he liked because the person will have to deal with the president of Ukraine. But she may be very good. I just don't know much about her. I don't think I've ever met her.
Okay. And now the European Union ambassador, Sondland, who works for the State Department, he is going to testify. And yet we're not entitled to any of that information. I mean, what is the White House's plans, given the fact that the Democrats don't seem to want to call a vote?
Well, you know, they just, if you take a look at it, where Adam Schiff made up a phony, fraudulent statement, and he read it as though I said it, because my phone call was a perfect call with the president of Ukraine. It was congenial. It was friendly. It was no pressure. It was no blackmail, as he said. There was no pressure, no blackmail, no nothing. They don't even understand what the question is, and people that read it don't know what the problem is because there was no problem. What the problem is, though, that Adam Schiff didn't read that. He read something that he made up something, fraudulently made up a conversation, and he read it to Congress, and he read it to the American people, and it was horrible. But it was a fraudulent thing that he just, out of thin air, he made up, Jeanine. It was a terrible thing that he was allowed to do that. And that's where we are right now. And very strong action should be taken against this guy because I've never even heard of a thing like that. Now, where we really upset the apple cart, they didn't think we'd do this, I released the conversation.
Right.
You had stenographers. It was a call that was taken, very accurately taken. When I released the call, that really turned things over because now they saw it was a perfectly fine call. It was a very standard, very nice call. And that's the way it is, Jeanine. And it's a fraud that's being perpetrated on the American people by Adam Schiff, by Nancy Pelosi. She was on George Stephanopoulos the other day, and she tried to say that I made that call. And I did, in other words, the way Schiff had it.
Right.
And even Stephanopoulos, I respect him for it. He said, no, he didn't say that. That was made up by Adam Schiff. It was all made up.
Right.
The whole thing is a hoax. It's a terrible thing, but it's a fraud in our country, and it's so bad for our country.
And so why isn't she calling a vote? I mean, we know if she called a vote, then these hearings would be open. Your counsel would be able to be there. You would be able to have subpoena witnesses.
Right.
The Republicans
That's
would be there.
probably why she's not calling it. She can't get the votes because we're doing so well now. On Thursday I was in Minnesota. We had an arena the size of Madison Square Garden that was packed, and we could have sold it out many times. Last night I was in Louisiana. We had a fantastic arena. We could have sold it out many times. It was packed. It was also broadcast, I guess, on Fox and other networks. We've never had a level of enthusiasm. I was called by the great pastors of this country in a call about a week ago, and they said they have never seen electricity in the air, enthusiasm in the air. Churches are joining. People are joining the church. They've never seen anything like what's happening. That's because everybody knows the Russian witch hunt was a phony fraud, and we got rid of that, and then they came up with this Ukrainian story that was made up by Adam Schiff. I guess he was a screenwriter or something, failed. But that's what it is. He made up my conversation. How can you be worse than that? And then they say he has immunity from prosecution because he delivered it in Congress.
In Congress, yeah.
Well,
even though
it's a false statement. He should have immunity for that. I've never heard of a fraud like that.
Yeah, that is clearly a false statement. But, Joe Biden this week joined the chorus for impeachment. The amazing thing is that he apparently has no fear about what he or his son or any of the other Democrats were doing in the Ukraine. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's incredible the way the media sticks up for him. They say it's unsubstantiated, and yet it's not. He walked away, and I guess the new number is $168,000 a month between him and his friend, like $168,000 a month. But whether it's that or $50,000 a month, also I hear there was a payment of $3 million, and he knows nothing about energy. He knows nothing about oil, nothing, zero. You know more than he does. And he walked away with millions of dollars because of it's just illegal. You can't do it. And then he goes into China, and I just finished a great negotiation. Hopefully it gets papered down, but one of the great negotiations for our farmers and bankers and everybody, but the farmers, it's so incredible. I dealt with very powerful people in China, great negotiators, very tough people. They don't give you $1.5 billion for nothing. He walked out with $1.5 billion out of China. I said, these are not the same people that I've been dealing with. So he goes into China, takes $1.5 billion, and Wall Streeters, I've asked the biggest people on Wall Street, is that possible? They all said, no, it's not possible. It's a payoff.
Right.
It's a total payoff. And the press doesn't want to pick it up.
And
it's like the most and then you have Joe Biden on television. I can't imagine why he said this, talking about how he got rid of the prosecutor, and if they didn't get rid of the prosecutor, that they weren't going to get this vast amount of money, large amount of money. And he said, boom, the prosecutor was gone. That is called quid pro quo.
And it is also an admission that you could use in a criminal case where he is openly admitting what he did. But, you know, I want to ask a question that I haven't heard you answer, and that is, where is Barack Obama in all this? Why haven't we heard from him? I mean, in the beginning of your administration, he wouldn't stop talking. And now he's nowhere to be heard. Where is he?
I think he's hiding.
Why?
I think he knows all about it. And we're talking about investigate. The investigators were talking about the beginning, and it was really before I took office. It was, if you look at the insurance policy with Strzok and Page, just in case she should lose, we've got an insurance policy. That's what all this stuff has been about, the insurance policy. These are bad people. These are evil people. And this was the insurance policy. The two lovers, Strzok and Page, two beauties.
Well, you
and
know,
it's a terrible thing what they do to this country. Terrible. But we're winning, and we're winning big, and the American public knows it. And that's why I think they want to stay away, but they can do whatever they want. But they want to stay away. If you look at what's happening, Jeanine, if you take a look, the electricity for the Republican Party, they are so angry at what's taken place. Because as an example, everybody knows that Schiff, we call him Shifty Schiff, he made up the story. He made up my phone call.
right.
And based on that phone call, this is what this whole thing is about. It's all about a phone call. And the call is perfect. I've given that call to everybody to read it. In fact, Lindsey Graham made a statement. He said, I never knew you were so nice.
Well, but the amazing part of it is this is happening in our Congress. And, you know, it seems that when the Republicans are in office and they have the power, nothing like this ever happens. But when the Democrats get into power, it is, you know, it's scorched earth. Do the Republicans not know how to fight?
I tell you, I think they're more honest, if you want to know the truth.
Right.
I think that they don't stick together as well. And I think, you know, I have a 94, 95% approval rating with the Republican Party. We have great, great relationships with the people in the Republican Party, but they don't fight dirty. As an example, with subpoenas, you take a look at Paul Ryan when he was Speaker.
Right.
He wouldn't give them.
I remember.
I'm not even knocking him for that. He wouldn't give them. He thought it was inappropriate to give them. Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, all of the guys wanted Gates, all of them. Matt Gates. I could name 25 incredible. These are incredible people. They wanted subpoenas to investigate all of the corruption that they found. Horrible, horrible corruption. Paul Ryan would say, well, wait a minute, slow down. Let's come back next week. They come back. They wouldn't get it. She hands them out like it's cookies.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you, I wrote an open on this. I happen to agree with you. Why do you think that is?
It's maybe a difference in philosophy. Maybe they don't do it because they think it's bad for the country, because what she's doing is very bad for the country. They've committed a fraud. They made up a phony conversation. They got caught. And the reason they got caught is because they never thought I would release the transcript of my conversation with the president of Ukraine. They never thought, because it's something you don't want to do. We actually called up Ukraine, Mike Pompeo, called up Ukraine to get permission to do it. They thought it was an unusual request, but they said, sure. It was a very fine conversation. There was no problem. But if you want to use that, you can. They probably look at us. They say, what's going on? What is that all about?
Right.
But we actually, because I would have to do that. I not legally have to, but I'd feel badly doing it. You know how bad that is? Everybody that speaks now to the president of the United States is going to say, I wonder if I'm going to be broadcast all over the world, my little conversation.
Right, and every leader from any other country. But, you know, I want to turn to the Middle East now, Mr. President, because I know you're busy. I know you're on to another event. But, you know, there is, you know, Turkey has now launched an incursion into Syria. And there's
been all about it. I've known about it for a long time. I know the subject better than anybody.
I know. And I want to hear your version.
A lot of people disagree, but in the end, I'll be right. And, you know, the Kurds have been fighting with Turkey for a long time. The Kurds are some very good people, some very bad people. If you look at PKK, they're among the, you know, a tough group of people, let me put it that way. Mm-hmm. And I didn't fight. I told them I won't get involved when Iraq, about a year and a half ago, you remember, was going to fight against the Kurds. And I said, wait a minute, we spent all this trillions of dollars. We fight with Iraq. Should have never been in the Middle East, by the way, and I always said it. It was a mistake to be in. There were no weapons of mass destruction. But Iraq was going to fight the Kurds, and I said, nope, we're not going to take either side, because we had just been fighting for Iraq, and now they want us to fight against Iraq and fight for the Kurds. And you know what? The Kurds left. They never took up the fight. Then they left the second time. They never took up the fight. And it looks like now they may leave a third time, and that's okay. Maybe they'll get somebody else to go in and fight with them. If they want to get somebody else to go fight with them, that would be fine. It would be okay with me. But we want to get out of the endless wars. We'll be stuck there forever, Jeanine, forever. We have to get out of the endless wars. They say I'm a disruptor. Let me disrupt. We have to get out of the endless wars. I see our incredible soldiers at Walter Reed Hospital. I gave out Purple Hearts on Friday to people that were decimated. I speak to parents that have lost their children. I give letters to. It's time. It's 7,000 miles away from the United States. I want to protect our borders. I want to protect our borders.
Let me ask you, Mr. President, how is it that the removal of 50 troops, that's my understanding, we're talking about 50 troops.
It has nothing to do with it. He was going to go in anyway. Jeanine,
but how does that
they've been fighting the Kurds for 200 years.
Yeah, but how
he was going in anyway. It wasn't the 50 troops. And we basically, those troops were gone anyway. We have nobody there. We defeated ISIS. We did a favor. And then I said to Europe, take your ISIS fighters back. Germany, France, UK, all of them. They didn't want to take them back. I said, well, we're not going to hold them. But they're so used to treating the United States so badly. I said, take your fighters back. We did you a big favor. We captured them. Take them back. They didn't want to take them back. So I said, well, you know, somebody's going to have to take them, because we're not bringing them back to Guantanamo Bay. We're not going to bring them back. We're not going to take them. We did everyone a great favor. We took 100%. We defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. And if I didn't do it, believe me, it was a mess when I took over.
But
I also rebuilt our military. But we're not going to stay in these areas forever. You know, we were supposed to be in Syria for 30 days. That was 10 years ago.
Right.
We're bringing our soldiers back home. And if somebody else wants to fight with the Kurds against Turkey, or if the Kurds want to move a little bit, move around, right now they're doing what they did with Iraq. And Turkey wants to create a border. Now, Turkey also knows, because I got back Pastor Brunson. You remember that?
Yes,
I did a lot of damage to their currency in order to get them back. If we have to do something, if Turkey is out of line and what they're doing, really out of line, I will do something, because our economy is so powerful now. When I took over this country 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, we would have been second to China in a very short period of time. Now we're so far ahead of China, you wouldn't believe. We've picked up trillions and trillions of dollars in worth, and China's gone down many trillions of dollars in worth.
But I want to go back.
Mr.
And
President, we will use our economic force if we have to against Turkey.
Yeah, and I want to stay with Turkey for a second. But people say that the win against ISIS is short-lived now if we take off. But more importantly, my issue is about NATO. Turkey is a member of NATO since 1951, I believe. So where are all the other NATO countries? Why is the United States the only country that's supposed to be there to make sure that 11,000 ISIS prisoners are imprisoned and stay imprisoned?
Okay, that's a good question. I'll tell you where the other NATO countries are. They're not paying their bills. That's where they are. So out of 28 countries, 20 of them are delinquent. They don't pay their bills. I got them to pay $100 billion more. Secretary General Stoltenberg said he's my biggest fan in the whole world. He said, until I came along, they weren't paying their bills. The United States was paying for NATO. And NATO protects Europe. And say what you want. NATO protects Europe. Maybe it's a little bit good for us, but we pay 4.3%, and Germany pays 1%. And Germany's supposed to be paying 2%. And we protect all of these countries in Europe, and on top of everything else, they're delinquent. And on top of that, they don't want to take back the ISIS fighters that we captured.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. When they're their citizens who went to fight in ISIS, they're captured, but they don't want them back. Let me ask you this. Have you spoken to President Erdogan recently?
Yes, a number of days ago.
What did you tell him?
I know he's been building up for a year on his border. They have a tremendous unlimited amount of soldiers because, you know, Turkey is right there. It's their border. And they've been fighting with the Kurds for many years, for centuries they've been fighting with the Kurds. And it's like some people go to lunch. That's what they do. They fight with the Kurds. It's time for us to leave. We're going to leave. And you know what? If the Kurds can find somebody else, or if the Kurds move around. Look, with Iraq, everybody wanted me to fight with the Kurds against Iraq. I said, wait a minute, we just won. We just had a war where we spent all of this money on Iraq. In my opinion, largely wasted because there were no weapons of mass destruction, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But now we're supposed to fight against them. I said, nope, we're going to stand aside. Let them fight. Well, the Kurds left. They didn't fight. And then they left the second time. I made a good decision. I got no credit for it, and that's fine. Well, now I'm making a similar decision. And frankly, we spent a lot of money on the Kurds. We've given them tremendous weapons. We've given them ammunition, but it's time for us to go home. We want to defend our country. We also have to be very strong. We'll have a good relationship with Russia. We'll have a good relationship with China. You see the trade deal. That's an indication we made a great deal for our farmers and others. Right. But you know what? We have to be prepared for that. The bigger picture, we have to.
All right.
And we're rebuilding our military, Jeanine. I spent $2.5 trillion on rebuilding. When I came in, we had no ammunition 2.5 years ago.
Obama knocked
A general
it down.
told me, sir, I'm sorry, we have no ammunition. And no president should ever be in that position.
All right. I have two questions before you go. Do you think that the Democrats will impeach you?
Well, I think it's a hoax. And I think if they do, they're going to suffer at the ballot box because the only thing impeachable is the fraud.
I'm not
that
saying
Adam
legitimate.
Schiff,
I'm not saying legitimate. I'm
on the
saying,
American people.
do you
because
think
he made up
vote?
my conversation. He made a conversation that didn't exist. He never thought in a million years that I was going to release the real conversation. And when it did, the whistleblower turned out to be totally inaccurate, meaning you can make your own determination. They say a lot of things about the whistleblower. They protect him. I think we have to find out who the whistleblower is that would give all this false information. And also, Adam Schiff. Something has to be done. How can somebody stand up before Congress and make a speech about my conversation,
which is
word
not
for
accurate.
word reading my conversation, and it's a fraud? He made it up himself.
Okay, my last question. You were in Louisiana. And before that, I believe you were in, was it Minnesota? All right. And you were just at another event, and you're talking to me, and you're going to another event. Do you take vitamins? How do you do this?
No, but, you know, I just enjoy doing it. We're doing so great for the American people. We have the strongest economy we've ever had. Even China, when they came in on Friday, I met with the vice premier. He said, congratulations on the incredible job you've done with the economy. I'm telling you, Jeanine, China was going to catch us in a very short period of time, and now we're so far ahead of China, and he knows it, and he respects it, frankly. They respect it. It's one of those things, but we've rebuilt our military. We've cut everybody's taxes. Our vets are happy now. We got them choice. We got them accountability where you can now fire people that mistreat them.
Yes.
These are things that couldn't be gotten for 5 decades. They could never be gotten. I got them all. Nobody's done what I've done, and yet I've had this horrible cloud where these people, these horrible people, these really dishonest people that have to hate our country. They have to hate our country because the Russian witch hunt was a hoax, and the Ukraine thing is a hoax.
It's even
and
worse.
What they've done to Justice Kavanaugh is a disgrace. They want to impeach him, and they have nothing. These people, they just want to influence him. They don't want to impeach him. They want to influence him.
Indeed.
So I'm energized by it, Jeanine. That's
I
it.
know
I have no choice
are.
because I have to do it for the country.
I know you are, and you have a great, great story to tell. Mr. President, on behalf of my viewers and myself, thank you for taking the time to join us on Justice. Good night, and God bless.
Thank you.